Overwatch League Week 2 Recap. Spoilers ahead. Let's begin. Game 1. The Paris Eternal versus the Vancouver Titans. The Bread Bowl, as dubbed by Avast, started out with a dominant showing from the Titans, who took Oasis 2-0 without losing a single teamfight. After that, however, things got pretty scrappy, but ultimately Paris managed to rally back with 3 maps of their own, taking the series and unfortunately leaving Titans fans without breadsticks once more. If you're looking to recapture the glory of last year's El Clasico, look no further. Key takeaway: baguettes are superior. Game 2. The LA Gladiators versus the London Spitfire. After a subpar opening weekend, the Gladiators bounced back looking more like the team people expected them to be, taking a decisive 3-0 victory over the Spitfire. It's nice to finally see Blaze getting playtime on the role he actually plays, and Shaxx reminded us just how deadly his Tracer is, but I just can't help but feel like London fans are waiting for Sparker to turn 18, as Hybrid doesn't seem to be impressing anyone. Key takeaway: Satiators no more. Game 3. The Chengdu Hunters versus the New York Excelsior. In the most egregious example of scrimbucks so far, the NYXL showed almost no signs of life past the first map, as Chengdu showed no mercy. The rookies of New York just couldn't hold a candle to the better team play coming out from the Hunters. Jinmu got a lot of value on Pharah, while Feather got almost no value on Mei and Sombra, and Yakpung looked very lost. I'm also curious about the decision to run Flora on the flick scan over Kwangbum. I don't think Flora was the problem per se, but Kwangbum was hyped as the superstar for this team, and it's a little strange to see him absent in the opening match. Key takeaway: I believe in Chengdu's supremacy. Game 4. The Philadelphia Fusion versus the Hangzhou Spark. The Spark started out strong, but for some reason decided to sub out their Winston Prodigy on a double bubble map, giving way for the momentum to swing over to Philly. Takoyaki was really the only one contesting Carpe on Widowmaker, which left the Spark without a solid frontline half the time, and I question why the Spark decided not to send someone like Architect after him. The Fusion, after their map 1 hiccup, regained control and took the match 3-1. An important thing to note here, however, is that the Spark were dealing with ping issues, so it's likely this is far from the best look they can give us. Key takeaway: please heal IDK. Please. Game 5. The Houston Outlaws versus the Paris Eternal. In a game that likely surprised many, the Eternal managed to put up a fight against the Outlaws and even managed to take a map in the Rush Mirror. Paris leveled up after the match the day prior and looked competitive not only in the Rush Mirror but also the Double Bubble Mirror on map 3. On the other side, Piggy played out of his mind, appealing for his team countless times throughout the match and showing how Sigma can slot into Rush after all. Juby also clutched up, repeatedly contesting in multiple overtimes and surviving through it all. Overall, a surprisingly good showing from the Eternal, but the Outlaws were just better. Key takeaway: rest in peace, Suna. Game 6. The Boston Uprising versus the LA Gladiators. This match was quite frankly not close. Although the first map was competitive, the Gladiators just looked more and more like the team that was promised as they took down the Uprising with ease. Gladiators looked far more decisive, which led to long stalls on maps like Gibraltar that Boston wasn't prepared to deal with. After 2 consecutive 3-0s against mid-table teams, the Gladiators are hoping to carry this momentum into the May Melee. Key takeaway:
Please kill Kevster. Please!
Game 7. The Washington Justice versus Dallas Fuel. This match had so many storylines going into it, from Decay facing his former team, Mag and the Justice's debut in the Overwatch League, and Sparkle continuing to prove he can play Tracer. This match delivered on every single front. From pop-off moments to playstyle adaptations, both teams proved they have what it takes to succeed in the league. Fearless had one of the best Winston performances of all time, and despite Justice winning 3-1, Dallas fans shouldn't feel disappointed as this match was far closer than the score implies. Key takeaway: 16 Primal Rage kills. Yeah. Game 8. The Hangzhou Spark versus the New York Excelsior. The Excelsior on map 1 started off looking much better than the day prior, but it wasn't all good, especially not Flora Sombra. Yakpung looked a lot better, but it's still early, so I'd like to see more. Although Jonak got picked first quite a bit on Havana, New York were still able to win out many of those fights. There were some standout performances from the Spark, notably on Volskaya, but ultimately some weird compositional choices and overall inferior team play allowed New York to take the match 3-1. Key takeaway: Kwangbum stocks going down. Game 9. The Chengdu Hunters versus the Philadelphia Fusion. The two juggernauts of the APAC region went head to head, and map 1 was just as chaotic as you'd expect from Jinbu and Pharah, but once we got into the Rush Mirror, the fusion absolutely stopped. The Hunters were able to bounce back on Volskaya off the back of Gaga's Wrecking Ball and the fusion DPS being forced into a role reversal, but despite their best efforts, they couldn't get it over the line on King's Row. I'm curious to see how Chengdu will grow from this match, as it clearly exposed their weakness in Rush Mirrors. Key takeaway: just Nano Carpe, I guess. Game 10, the Houston Outlaws versus the London Spitfire. The lack of Dante raised talk of an upset by the hands of the Spitfire, but the Outlaws took a 2-0 lead in the series off the back of Rush and Double Bubble. There seemed to be a lack of coordination when London ran Double Bubble, as Shax was often left without resources on a mission to solo carry by himself, but it wasn't meant to be as Houston closed it out in dominant fashion. It's nice to see KSF succeeding in the starting lineup, especially after he didn't have the best showing the day prior. Key takeaway:
Happy.
Says he's sorry.
Game 11, the Boston Uprising versus the Taoist Fuel. A game between the two former main tanks of the Shanghai Dragons, the Fuel dominated map 1, not dropping a single teamfight in the process. Havana was much closer, as their lack of hit scan really hindered them due to the map geometry, but because of unorthodox team compositions, the Fuel squeaked out a win here as well. Dallas looked clean on the Double Bubble, and although Boston put up a good fight, they ultimately just couldn't get the job done. Byunbong had some good moments, but I can't help but feel like Faith and I'm37 underperformed, especially given how many times I'm37 got nanoed. Key takeaway: Fielders finally out of Brig Jail. Game 12, the Washington Justice versus the Vancouver Titans. The first two maps weren't close, as Justice took an easy 2-0 lead, but the Titans managed to take a map off the Justice in a Rush Mirror where the Justice didn't look nearly as good. I wonder why they ran Jerry instead of Decay on Anubis, as Decay could have given them the flexibility to play Double Bubble on defense and a better chance to close it out, especially after how good he looked on Blizzard World. Assassin Sombra needs work, but Vancouver fans are left with an empty feeling once again, as they are denied their breadsticks yet again. Key takeaway: the Justice have the best player cams in the league. That's all the games for this past weekend. Do you agree with my hot takes, or am I overrating the fusion? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.